Boston College is down one coach on their staff, and it's not one that you would expect.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider. Thank you all for joining. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. We got a packed episode today, folks. We're going to talk about Jeff Hafley, who went from the doghouse to a potential NFL head coach. We're going to look at a new name, a local name to watch on the recruiting circle. We're going to kick things off with a change in the coaching staff. So on Friday, Boston College announced, Pete Thamel of ESPN announced, basically like Boston College announcing, that Jeff Comissiong, the defensive line coach for Boston College, is no longer with the team. This is a first-year head positional coach that Bill O'Brien brought in that had experience with BC. He was with the Eagles from 2007 to 2013, then went to Harvard, Cornell, and Old Dominion before ending his FCS run at Maine and then heading to BC. Obviously, if you're talking defensive line coach, you'd look at, his star pupil, Donovan Ezaraku, and say, wow, this guy did a really good job with this roster. And it's hard to argue with that because you went from Ezaraku being a 2.5 sack guy a year ago to 16.5 this last season, to basically becoming a first or second round draft pick, the best defensive lineman in the country. I mean, that's a lot. Comissiong came in, and he was one of those coaches that was not, if I remember correctly, I could not make a connection on their career trajectories that put him in the same staff as Bill O'Brien. So to me, he struck me as, it was late in the season, in the coaching hiring season. They went for a guy that knew Boston College. He had been at BC for a long time, and he had, the recruiting chops to do it. Like he brought in BJ Raji and Ron Brace and Dylan Quinn and a few other big Matt Milano. So he knew the school, he knew the challenges, and that piece of his history, I felt was a good fit for Boston College. And I think that was great. We've been saying all along, going into this offseason, that Bill O'Brien last year, he started late. He had not his first choices with the coaches that he brought in. Obviously, guys like Will Long, and there's a few others that are on the staff he knew, but there's others that he didn't know. And I think he had to kind of do the best that he could to find guys that he connected with to fill out his staff. January hits. This is why you're hearing about it now. If you remember the history of Boston College coaching changes, not the head coach, but like positional coaches, it almost always happens in January. I think back to Dave DeGuglielmo, the Googs, who was a fun little joke on our show in 2022. I think a lot of folks were freaking out because it took up until January. BC was terrible that year. They didn't make a bowl. They had to wait till January to fire him. And I think a lot of the contracts, if I'm reading the tea leaves right, they end in January. So we don't know why Jeff is gone, Jeff Comissiong, the defensive line coach. We don't know. Was it on his own accord? Was it because, O'Brien had another choice? He wanted to move on. I'm not sure. I don't think he deserved to be fired. Obviously, you had Donovan Ezaraku. That's a pretty good stamp to put on your resume. That being said, I see a lot of people saying the defensive line looks so much better this year under him. I caution you a little bit on that too, because the defensive line itself, you had Quintavious Hutchin play a little better, but the defensive line played better because Donovan Ezaraku played out of his mind. And if you want to credit Jeff for that, Jeff Comissiong for getting him to that level, then go for it. But to say the defensive line itself played better, look at the guys that you had. Neto Ekpala basically was still Neto Ekpala from last year. I didn't see a ton of change there. Most of the situational defensive linemen that you had, like George Rooks, Owen Stodmeyer, maybe a little bit of improvement here and there, but were they like game changers? No. They weren't there yet. And then Hutchins. Hutchins obviously took a step forward. So a massive step forward, I think, is a bit of an overstatement, especially given that everyone probably played a lot better. And I don't want to knock Comissiong for his coaching. It was probably more due to everyone on that offensive side of the ball that they played against had to focus on number 6, through that entire game. And that made everyone's job easier. We saw it against Nebraska. Ezra didn't play. Hutchins became much more pedestrian. They could not get a pass rush, and they struggled. So I'm not sure what the deal is. I'm not going to speculate. It's not fair to Jeff Comissiong. It's not fair to anybody. But he's gone. Now, where does Boston College go from there? Now, if you know how coaching is going, and this is how it works at every level, Bill O'Brien most likely will go for coaches that he knows. And he has a huge coaching tree, so it's not that his options are going to be limited, but there's going to be guys out there that he may go for. Now, the simplest answer, we're going to have a big board up on Eagle Insider with 4 or 5, 6, maybe more names that he could be looking at. The simplest answer is if he wants to just go from internally, there's defensive line assistant coach, Michael George, who's been on the team. And I believe on one of the podcasts recently, he was talking highly of him. He could be it, or he could go externally. One last thing on Comissiong before we move on. How is he as a recruiter? It's hard to gauge. Clearly, he dealt with the Midwest. He had 2 commitments on his line that he brought. On the defensive edge that he brought in some defensive tackles too. But Israel Aladepapo is a big one I'm looking at, and then Jaden Fry. You brought in Micah Amity, but that was, I think that might be more towards the local recruiting and their pipeline in this area. They brought in Sterling Sanders out of South Carolina, and they brought in a 3rd defensive tackle in that class. So he's brought some in, and, obviously there's been some defensive edge rushers this year. They have 3. So, it's hard to gauge who is more important, the local recruiters versus the positional recruiters. But I think the end of the day, what we're saying here is there's going to be an opening. Now, with January being over, curious to see if there's going to be more changes. Now that Bill O'Brien has had a chance to, see the guys that he brought in, make his adjustments, make decisions whether they're the right fits or not. Maybe there are better fits that he just couldn't get last year, and he might look aboard for other guys. Not sure what that's going to look like. On Monday's episode, Mitch Wolf will be on to talk about more of this coaching change, and we'll talk more about what BC could be looking for in that spot. Now, in our second segment, I want to tell you about another local name that we have not talked about here that I think is a big priority for Boston College. You're going to want to hear more about that in just a moment. This message is brought to you by Prizepicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your pick hits, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right, 1,000 times your money just by playing a few simple picks. For me, I'm all about the hot takes this season. This week on Prizepicks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for more than 250 yards and Travis Kelce for more than 70 receiving yards. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prizepicks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you can get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait, take your game to the next level. Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you're having a great week. And what makes your week even better is if you checked out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. He's talking about everything about the national championship game this Monday. Want to hear more about Ohio State and Notre Dame? Check out that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, this is a big weekend for BC football as they're hosting a good size of potential 26 targets, commitments, and future targets on unofficial visits on campus. And the key to this group, it's a lot of local recruits. You're getting a lot of kids that they're looking at that they want for class of 26 and future. Now, I have told you a lot about Marky Walbridge. Marky Walbridge is a high 3-star recruit, borderline 4-star, big offer list that is, primo on their list in terms of remaining local targets. I don't expect them to target U-Hall. I know you guys, Leneal Hall, I know you guys have been asking a lot about him. He's not a target right now. I don't think he will be. Marky Walbridge is a name that you're going to want to watch for more. He's going to be one. But then that's not who I'm talking about, because I talked about Marky Walbridge all last week from St. Sebastian's. Carter Gooden is the name that I'm watching for. This is a 26 edge from Tabor Academy in Massachusetts. He is not rated yet, but he will be, and his rating is going to get a lot of attention, I bet, because I'm sure he's going to shoot up the local recruit list. He has a solid offer list of 7 schools already that include Kentucky, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, and Syracuse. So there's some good schools that are looking for him, including, and then there's Syracuse. So there's some good, interest in this kid. I know from talking to my sources, this is a big priority for Boston College. They've already landed 2 defensive edge rushers. Actually, 2 defensive edge rushers. No, 3. What am I saying? 3 edge rushers already. Mac Fitzgerald of Catholic Memorial, Mason Leak of Bacon Academy, and Dominic Funk, who we talked about earlier this week, who, bring on the Funk. They're not done there. This is a class that is heavy in the trenches, which makes me excited. Man, if you want to make a good team, you build those trenches up, you make those good. That's where you start. I think they're going to continue pushing for those edge rushers, and Carter Gooden is going to be a big-time priority. He is going to be on campus this weekend. This is another unofficial visit. He's been on campus before, and I think I think this is a kid that you want to get on a lot, because he's going to probably not commit for a while. He's going to take some visits. He'll probably end up at Lexington at some point, or, up at Michigan State. But the more seeds you can plant, that this is the place that you want to go, that your friends and family can come see you play 7 games a year, that the program is heading in the right direction. You're going to get a kick-butt education, and you're going to win at football and get you potentially to the NFL. That message, if Bill O'Brien can sell that to him, he will go here. But you have to keep working at that. And getting these visits is huge. The more, the merrier, because, kids will, if he really wasn't interested in Boston College, he wouldn't be taking these visits. He would be like, you know what, I'm gonna go see Wicked this week. Yeah, he's not gonna see Wicked, but they've got other plans. The NFL playoffs are this weekend. But I think this is a good one. And there's many other names. And if you want the other names, go up to Eagle Insider. I love the way that this class is forming. I don't expect a ton of action, as I said a couple days ago, with more local recruits. I think right now, if you're looking at Massachusetts, it's Carter Gooden and Marky Walbridge. And that'll probably be it. There's other names out there, but they're not connected to BC. The other funny part about this weekend is part of their visit is they're going to go see Duke and Boston College basketball. I guess if you wanted a Pat Conti forum, that's a choice. But Cooper Flagg is going to do things to this team that I would not want any other recruit to see. Duke is very, very good, and BC is not playing very well, to put that nicely. So, hey, you know what? I talked to those 5-star recruits last week, or the 5-star recruit last week. He saw them lose to Syracuse and didn't seem to care. He still likes BC, so maybe this won't hurt. Honestly, though, what the basketball team doesn't really matter. It's the relationships that kids like Gooden need to form with their coaches. The interesting thing with all of this is Gooden, as I said, is an edge rusher. He won't be able to meet with a positional coach because they don't have one. With Jeff Comissiong gone, he'll probably spend time with Tim Lewis. That's my guess. Tim Lewis will probably spend some time with them. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who the positional coach is. It's the man on top. It's Bill O'Brien. And if Bill O'Brien can impress him, that's what's going to matter. So hopefully Bill will, do the best that he can to get, Carter Gooden, Marky Walbridge, and these other kids to really look hard at Boston College. Now, in terms of their commitments, I'm not expecting commitments from the 26 kids this weekend. Walbridge, Gooden, there's too much going on. I would expect more from a spring or a summer commitment from both of these guys. My personal guess is that it would be after official visit season. Official visit season at the end of May, early June. That's usually when kids like this that have multiple big offers are going to check out campus. So that's when I would expect. There's a bunch of other younger kids on campus as well from classes of 27 and 28. Maybe you can catch them early. There may be some chances there. But that's what I'm thinking. I love the play of Carter Gooden. I think this is a kid that's a can't-miss prospect in Massachusetts out of Tabor Academy. 6'5", 250. That, my friends, is Donovan Azaraku size. And bigger than Donovan Azaraku. That's a big, mauling edge rusher. Bring him over. All right. In our final segment, let's talk about Jeff Hafley. I haven't talked about Haf in a long time on this podcast, but there's big news going on with him. I want to talk about his odyssey over the last 365 days and how it could lead to kind of an ironic end. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps everything exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with the $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com now. Now, me. Again, I am still going with my Derrick Henry multiple touchdown pick. I am doing this for entertainment purposes only, but that man is an absolute monster out there. And I get this feeling it's going to be his playoffs. The Titans gave up on him. The Ravens are running with him. Zay probably is not going to play. Give me Derrick Henry and 2 touchdowns in this game. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, wrapping things up here on our Friday episode of Locked On BC. When you're done, go back to the rest of this week. There's tons of episodes. They have tons of good stuff about recruiting, the transfer portal, the upcoming season, being nice to BC basketball. Go check those all out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, I felt like for a while I was tough on Jeff Hafley. And I heard you guys in the comment section. Stop talking about Hafley. He's gone. He's not a BC guy anymore. But I wanted to talk because this last week has been kind of a trip. Because if you have been paying attention to my Twitter or anything that's going on with the NFL, you've heard the news that on Friday, Jeff Hafley received a interview with the New York Jets. So let's just take a step back here for a second. In the span of 365 days, a year ago today, he was still the head coach of Boston College football. Just a couple weeks off a Fenway Bowl win. But remember, there was still a lot of is he the right guy feel? And many people were thinking, we really need to move on from him because we've kind of topped out at what Jeff Hafley can do. He did us all a favor by leaving and going to the Green Bay Packers. He becomes a defensive coordinator. Some view that as a demotion. He chose it. He didn't want to coach in college anymore. He didn't want to go through the grind of recruiting, NIL, and the transfer portal. All the power to him. I get it. It's probably a lot of work. That being said, he goes to Green Bay. He puts together one of the best defenses in the country. He does what he said he was going to do, which is, he loves to coach. And coaching the defensive side of the ball is what makes him his bones. He had big games. He put together good game plans that made Green Bay a very vicious defense that didn't let up a lot of points. And, he kind of redeemed himself. But now, less than a year after leaving Boston College, he's interviewing for the New York Jets head coaching job, which I got to say right now, I find it endlessly hilarious that Jeff Hafley is applying for a job that got Jeff Jagodzinski fired, which is the Jets head coach job. How the world turns into a complete circle, right? Time is a circle. So he's interviewing for this, and he's now seen as a coordinator that is I don't want to say can't miss, but an intriguing head coaching spot. Color me a little skeptical here, But you know what? It may work for him. He doesn't have to recruit. He'll have a general manager to make his roster for him, probably with his input if he was to ever get a job. He can get an offensive coordinator that fits his view of what he wants to do, and he could run it would be a lot of work, but it's not the nonstop grind that you hear about college sports. So maybe it will work. Maybe that's the case. But there's a reason why I'm wearing my Patriots jersey today. You guys can see that on the feed on YouTube. It's because as a Patriots fan, I would love to see Jeff Hafley coach against the Pats. Get me Mike Vrabel versus Jeff Hafley, who honestly have a connection because Jeff coached his kid. This is crazy. Like, this whole world is so small. Mike Vrabel knows Jeff Hafley because Tyler was on his team, but there's a chance that they could be coaching against each other next year. Now, to be fair, while I'm saying all this, the Jets have, I think, 19 or 18 interviews that they've already done. I think the Patriots did like 5. So the odds of him not getting this job are pretty strong. But I got to say, if Hafley coaches his defense like he did last year, he's going to get a head coaching job at the NFL level. He's going to. They're going to go for him. And we're going to get to see whether maybe it was just a bad fit in the college world, or this is, going to follow him to the NFL. Many NFL teams have taken chances on reboots. I don't consider Jeff Hafley a reboot. Coaching Boston College versus coaching the New York Jets are two different animals, and they both have their highs and lows. As someone who has talked to Jeff, we had him on the podcast before. I respect, I do respect him. And part of me is going, Jeff, don't go for the Jets. Don't do it, because this just seems like he's going to be, that team is a disaster. And we don't know what's happening with Aaron Rodgers. There's all these issues that are going on with the roster. They got a general manager and owner that are questionable. Does Jeff Hafley really want that? Or maybe staying one more year with the Packers and see if a more suitable match that would be better for him will actually show up. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm still very interested to see how that goes. And I think most other job spots are kind of either wrapping up or they're done. So I'm not sure he's going to get any more interviews. But as I said, if he ends up back at Green Bay and they play again like they did this year, he's going to get a lot more next year. He's going to be a hot commodity next year. Now, on Monday's episode, we will recap Duke and BC. Ooh. We'll have Mitch on to talk about the Jeff Comissiong hire. Jeff Comissiong leaving, what that means. He'll give his whole take on that. We'll talk a little hockey. There's so much stuff going on. Well, if there's recaps from the weekend and recruiting, I'll have that all laid out for you guys all next week. Thank you all who have subscribed to Locked On Boston College on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you all who follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook. Get all your social media accounts locked onto our channel by finding me at AJBlack247 or Locked On BC. We're everywhere. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all again tomorrow. Actually, we'll see you guys on Monday for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.